With a title like Messiah of Evil, I've got some high expectations. I'm looking for some religious horror, maybe some cult stuff, something, I don't know, maybe demon possession-y. But no, that's not what we're going to get at all. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it'll give you a pretty good sense of what the horror movie syllabus is all about. But in short, we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then I, look at 3 movies from that subgenre. But today, we're not doing that because we're doing our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation that you guys left me in the comments below to my other videos. I watch it for the first time, and let you know if I think it's syllabus-worthy. Today's recommendation is Messiah of Evil. A recommendation came from Ted Harrington. And if you've been watching the channel, you know Ted has a knack for giving me all kinds of movies. I never know what I'm going to get with a recommendation from Ted. And so I don't know what I was going to get with this one. I knew nothing about this movie other than the title, and that Ted recommended this in our Lovecraft movie. And he said only that it might be extra credit worthy as a Lovecraftian horror movie. So I've got an idea or an expectation that I'm getting something kind of Lovecraftian, but that's it. That's all, that and the title. That's all I've got to go on. I'm not looking up anything else. I don't look up, trailers or anything like that ahead of time, synopses, nothing. Try to go in as cold as possible to give the movie as fair of a shake as possible. So this movie, I kind of alluded to it before. Like the title kind of evoked certain things, and I'm not. Spoiler alert, I didn't get what I thought I was going to be getting here in this movie. Somewhat for better, somewhat for worse. But did I like it? Did I hate it? Well, let's find out. Once again, the movie that we're talking about today is Messiah of Evil. Messiah of Evil came out in 1974 and is also sometimes called Dead People, which is interesting because Messiah of Evil feels like a very misleading title, whereas Dead People is very on the nose for this movie and almost a little too leading, too obvious. And it's interesting because it's made by the filmmakers who brought us Howard the Duck, the husband and wife team who brought us Howard the Duck, for better or for worse as well, I suppose. But really kind of a mixed bag. You have no idea what you're getting with this movie. So if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a young woman who goes to a coastal California town named Point Doom looking for her missing father, and instead encounters a weird hedonist guy in his throuple relationship, and a lot of mystery and people not being terribly cooperative in the town, and ultimately comes across a cabal of vampiric zombie ghouls. It's a little unclear what they are, but they are flesh-eating or meat-eating monsters that are kind of spreading like wildfire and threaten her and the town. And hijinks abound, of course, as they tend to do in movies like this, but we won't spoil it too much. But the weird thing about this movie is that it starts out as a mystery. It starts out with the idea of kind of a classic setup, but kind of this gothic mystery, if you will, of this woman trying to find her missing father, and following clues that he's left, but also ignoring the warnings that he doesn't want her to find him. And it's setting up all these mysteries, including mysterious characters. Like all the characters in the movie are mysterious. Like the dad's mysterious and what he was up to. The woman's mysterious in terms of like what is exactly her motivation. Why is she looking for her dad in this way? Why doesn't she know where he is already? Who is she? What's she about? And then this guy that she meets who's got 2 girlfriends. Like what is he about? Why is he invested in this? What is he doing there? Why are his girlfriends with him? What is their motivations? And like everything's a mystery. And it starts out kind of interesting, but it doesn't really unravel a lot of those mysteries. So it winds up being a detriment by the end of the movie. You're disoriented at the beginning of the movie, which again, for a mystery and for a setup for a horror movie, ain't necessarily a bad thing. But does it pay off? I'm not really sure, because it sets up this cool gothic mystery idea, but then at some point the movie's tone shifts to like more of like a Romero style zombie movie. Again, not a bad thing, but it's a weird shift. It's a weird shift that doesn't really feel very smooth to me. The movie winds up picking up towards the end, but it's slow for like the first 2/3 of it. It's really like the last 20 minutes or so where things really start to pick up in terms of like action, in terms of like horror and monsters and things like that. Up until then, it's a mystery that, if I'm being honest, isn't super compelling. You've got this woman trying to find her dad. I don't know anything about her dad. I don't know anything about her. So I'm not really invested in any of the characters. They're not bad characters and the acting's perfectly fine. It's just that they don't tell me anything about them, so I don't have any emotional investment or connection to anybody. So when the attacks start happening, I don't care that much about them. Now the attacks are pretty good, but like I said, the vast majority of this stuff happens at the end of the movie, and that's where it really picked up for me. I really got into it towards the end, but already it's been a lot of goodwill getting me to that point. Really kind of dragged me along for a long time, and there's a reason for that, and the reason feels like that it's driven a lot by filmmaking mistakes, if you will, or story mistakes. Like it really, and again, by people who are actual filmmakers. It's not like some do-it-yourself movie. It is actual filmmakers who made actual movies, and it feels like they just made mistakes that are, to me at least, kind of obvious. For example, the movie has not one but two voiceovers. You've got the voiceover of your protagonist woman also listening to voiceover narration by her father, like on tapes or whatever. And what? Like you're gonna have the voiceover itself is already a writing crutch. It's already not great. But dual voiceovers is like double bad. It's weird. Like you have her voiceover leading into his voiceover, and it's kind of terrible, man. It's really not great. It is the and that right off the bat that starts. So right off the bat, I was like, oh, we're in for some trouble here. And there's some flashbacks in the movie, like especially towards the end, that feel like they're kind of shoehorned in a little bit to try to make heads or tail of what's going on in this movie, which up until this point has been set up as a mystery, but really feels disjointed and kind of strange. Like I said, you've got all these characters that are popping up that don't seem to have any kind of clear motivation. We don't know why they're there, what they want, why they're entertaining what they're entertaining. It's very strange. People just connect each other. Like, hey, come stay with me. Why? Like, I don't know. There's never an explanation for that. And I think the voiceover just says, I don't know why. Let them stay here. Like, it's like, come on, man. That's lazy. That's lazy story writing and lazy filmmaking. Like, this movie feels disjointed. And it's interesting because the reputation of this movie, because I did some research on it after the fact, is that it's kind of like this cool, surreal thing. I don't think it's surreal. I think it's just made poorly. And it feels surreal because the narrative is disjointed and fragmented and not smooth. Like the story has plot holes and there's gaps and the characters don't make a lot of sense. And I don't think that that's done intentionally. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but it sure don't feel intentional. I know surreal, and this doesn't feel surreal to me. It feels poorly made. You've got some characters that don't make sense. You've got a story or a mystery that's not really being driven very well and not terribly compelling. And then some of the biggest sins to me is like, you get some early violence in the movie that kind of cuts away and doesn't show you the good stuff, doesn't show you the gore. You've got like this clear homage to Romero, but then it pulls the punches when it comes time for some Savini style gore. The grocery store scene in particular is one that stands out to me. It's a wonderful setup. It's got a really cool vibe to it. It looks great. You've got this attack happening, and then it just kind of cuts away, and you don't really get that payoff. And that bummed me out because I was like, well, if at least this is going to turn into like a cool zombie movie, I can get into that. But even if there's a weird switch, I could go for that. But it seemed like it kind of pulled that punch a little bit, and that was a surprise. That was a disappointing surprise, to be honest with you. The movie is kind of all over the map, man. It's a little bit of a mess, and it doesn't reward me for being patient with it. I tried really hard to stay invested in this, even though it wasn't doing its job to get me there, and I don't feel like I got any kind of payoff for that. I didn't care what happened to the characters. I didn't care what happened to the dad. And the only thing that I got at the end was some very cool scenes, admittedly, at the end. Like I said, the last 20 minutes or so, like with the cops showing up, that was a pretty cool scene with one cop kind of turning into one of these monsters. And it's not even really clear what these monsters are, frankly. Which I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not explaining it and leaving it kind of, nebulous. That actually I kind of dig a little bit, but I don't I don't know what to call them, frankly, but I did like that scene. I liked when the father finally shows up, and there's all this paint on him and everything because he's got this background as a painter, which doesn't really seem to go anywhere. There's a lot of lip service paid to the painting aspect of it. It doesn't seem to go anywhere other than for this really cool scene with the paint at the end that I really liked. But these things are coming at the end, and it's just not enough to outweigh the slog that I've just gone through to watch the movie. And it's not for nothing. And we'll get into this a little bit more in a couple minutes, but it's not the Lovecraft movie that I was kind of expecting when I got there. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. The way they did the Lovecraft influences in this movie I thought was really cool. It's one of the better things about the movie. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute. But overall, this movie misses the mark for me quite a bit. I don't know if it's partly because of the title and the idea of it being Lovecraftian and everything like that I had some higher expectations, but it didn't meet my expectations. And beyond that, just trying to judge it on its own merits, I just see all these flaws, and there's just not nearly enough benefits to outweigh the flaws. Does that mean it's syllabus worthy? Well, I guess technically this is the part where I say let's find out, even though we probably already know. So is Messiah of Evil syllabus worthy? Absolutely not, man. It's very clear that I did not like this movie and I wouldn't put it on my horror movie syllabus. So for me personally, it wouldn't make the syllabus. Not even as an extra credit, like Ted had recommended. Like, no, not even as extra credit. There's just far better Lovecraft movies out there. Far, far better Lovecraft movies. And honestly, Ted's given far other suggestions in that video for Lovecraft movies. In the comments of that video, there are far better Lovecraft stories that movies that Ted recommended that would be far better than this one. So even Ted acknowledges that there are other movies that are better than this one that deserve to be on the syllabus more than this one. But here's the thing. Other people might feel differently about this because when I did the research after the fact, this movie does have a solid reputation. It's got some love in the horror community. Several people have reviewed it rather well. It's made some lists, best of lists, deeper on the list, like top 100 lists, things like that. But I was surprised to see it having a positive reputation. Kim Newman, if you're familiar with Kim Newman, the horror film critic, who I love, seems to really like this movie, and really delves into a lot of the merits of it that I honestly don't see. But one thing I do agree with him on is the idea of the Lovecraft themes being a little more understated. Like when you think Lovecraft, you're thinking like monsters and eldritch gods and things like that. And this movie goes a different way. And I don't want to spoil it just in case you want to check it out, but it went much more subtle and gave me a Lovecraftian horror movie in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I give it a lot of credit for that. I do wish the movie was better because that aspect of it I think is super cool. Seeing a Lovecraftian movie that's just doing something different than what we normally see, fantastic. And then kind of switching from that to going into like Romero style, like a little jarring, but I could still be down for that because I mean Romero. I mean, come on, it's Romero. But subtle Lovecraft meets Romero zombie style stuff sounds like a match made in heaven, and it just isn't. It just isn't. You've got a mystery setup that doesn't go anywhere satisfying, characters that I don't care about, and pulling punches on the gore. These are the things that really make it miss the mark for me. People are raving about the movie, thinking it's quality. I think it's overrated based on that. Based on what Kim Newman and other critics have said about it, I think it's overrated. I think this is a very skippable movie. I wouldn't bother watching it again, and I wouldn't, in good conscience, recommend it to you. Other than that subtle Lovecraftian aspect of it. And here's the thing: like, I don't think you'd be mad watching this movie. I don't think you'd be like angry that you lost 90 minutes of your time or anything like that. I just don't think it's going to satisfy you. I don't think it comes off being worth the investment. I don't think you feel good at the end of it, like had an enjoyable experience. At least I didn't. But again, opinions may vary. Ted apparently liked this movie enough to recommend it. I'll thank Ted for that, sort of. But it wasn't for me. But it doesn't mean it wouldn't be for you. You've heard what I had to say about it. If people have seen it, leave in the comments below why you think you should see it, Ted. That goes for you especially. But let people know what the merits are that I might not be cottoning to, and let us know why it's worth investing some time into. But for me, it's a mess. So that's going to be it for Messiah of Evil for me, or Dead People, if you will, because that's very on the nose. But that's not it for the video, because we are going to look at a Horror Trivia Pursuit card. It is that time of the video where I put on the glasses and read a Horror Trivia Pursuit card, and I guess we'll go with the monster category for the card because this is technically monsters, even though I don't really know what kind of monsters they are. But let's go with that. So today's question is: in 1941's The Wolfman, the protagonist Lawrence Talbot buys a cane decorated with the silver bust of what animal? Now, I know this movie. In fact, I watched The Wolfman not too long ago, actually. If you guys watch the movie Timelines channel, you know that Josh Spiegel, there, the host of that channel, does his Dead Last movies, and we recently did Wolf movies, and we also did some Universal horror movies. So I've been very steeped in Wolfman stuff for a little while lately. Plus, watched some for my own stuff. Anyways, and by the way, if you're not watching Movie Timelines, you should be watching Movie Timelines. It's a great channel. But yeah, this one I know. But I'll be honest with you, even if you've never seen The Wolfman, never seen the movie, don't know who Lawrence Talbot is, don't know anything about his cane, you can probably guess this one, man. It's pretty easy, right? Like, this is just some simple deductive reasoning. Like, this should not be a hard question. And, I prattled on a little bit to kind of like give you an opportunity to come up with an answer, but come on, man, it's not that hard, right? So lock in an answer. We're gonna wrap this up real quick here. Obviously, my answer is going to be wolf. It's a wolf bust on the cane. Double check the card to make sure. Yep, it's wolf. Like, come on, it's the wolf man. Obviously, it's 1941. There's no subtlety here. It's clearly going to be a wolf, right? You should have been able to guess that, even if you've never seen the movie. You should have been able to guess that one. So I'm going to assume you guys got it right. And if you didn't, and you had a funny answer, let me know in the comments below. But I'm going to assume you were right on that one. So that's going to be it for this video. They can't all be winners. So doesn't mean you stop giving recommendations, guys. Keep them coming because overall, this is a fun series. I really enjoy getting exposed to movies I haven't seen before and getting to talk about them with you. So keep those recommendations coming. Next week, we'll be doing something completely different. But until then, class is